You've just stepped into a moment that wasn't scheduled on your calendar, but it was written in the stars long before you drew your first breath. Listen closely. Somewhere in the heart of a bustling Chicago suburb, 3 nights ago, a 8-year-old man named Caleb sat in a dimly lit kitchen, staring at a stack of bills that didn't add up and a life that felt like it was fracturing at the seams. He made a choice. It wasn't a loud choice. He didn't post it on his feed, and he didn't tell his best friend over a beer at the local pub. He made a quiet, agonizing decision to choose integrity over an easy escape, to choose faith over the biting cold of cynicism. To Caleb, that moment felt smaller than a grain of sand on a California beach. But 700 miles above the clouds, in the courts of eternity, that decision registered like a 9-magnitude earthquake. The atmosphere around you is shifting right now, not because of the pixels on your screen, but because your spirit is finally catching up to a reality your mind has been trying to ignore. You didn't click on this because of an algorithm or a lucky thumb swipe. The mechanism was digital, but the intent was divine. Heaven just hit the pause button on the universe's chaotic noise specifically to address you. 10 seconds ago, a name was whispered through the halls of glory, and it wasn't the name printed on your Colorado driver's license or your birth certificate. It was your true name, the hidden identity that only the Creator uses when He wants your undivided attention. Can you feel that? That subtle, unexplainable pressure in your chest? That sudden realization that the room you're sitting in feels a bit smaller, more sacred? That's not anxiety. That's recognition. God is profoundly impressed with you. But here is the catch. He isn't impressed by the things you're proud of. He isn't looking at your LinkedIn endorsements or your Instagram perfect displays of faith. He is focused on the version of you that exists when the lights are out and the world is asleep. He saw you when you were driving down an empty highway at 2 a.m. and chose not to let bitterness take the wheel. He saw the way you handled that betrayal when you had every legal and social right to tear that person down, but you chose silence instead. We often think that the chosen ones are the ones on the stages with the microphones and the millions of followers. But the real seismic shifts in history are caused by people like you, people who are winning invisible battles in the trenches of ordinary life. You thought those moments of secret obedience dissolved into the ether, but they were actually being recorded with forensic, high-definition precision. That recording has just finished uploading to the throne room, and the verdict is in. You have passed a test you didn't even know you were taking. This isn't just a motivational pep talk to get you through your Tuesday. This is a formal commissioning. When the Creator of the universe is impressed, He doesn't just give you a participation trophy. He authorizes you. He deploys you. And when you are deployed by the architect of reality, the very laws of physics and circumstance have to bend to accommodate what is coming for you next. You aren't just surviving a rough patch in your 20s or 30s. You are being upgraded in real time. But I need you to stay with me for the next few minutes, because what I'm about to reveal next will shatter every lie you've been telling yourself in the mirror. You see, most people think God's approval is a destination, a place where you can finally sit down and rest. But in the kingdom, approval is actually a trigger. It's the starting gun for a transformation so radical that you won't even recognize the person you were before you pressed play on this video. There is a specific reason why the last 6 months of your life felt like a relentless gauntlet. You thought you were just unlucky, or perhaps being punished, but you were actually being evaluated in ways that most humans never experience. You were being prepared for a weight of glory that would crush an unrefined soul. And while you were busy wondering if God had forgotten your address in the middle of a flyover state, He was actually zooming in with a telescope, watching the way your heart beat when things went wrong. You've been through the Nistar, that ancient, hidden place where motives are stripped bare and only the truth remains. And because you didn't perform for the crowd, because you chose the shadow over the spotlight, you have unlocked a level of divine access that is about to manifest in your physical world in ways you can touch, see, and measure. We are talking about a total realignment of your trajectory. However, before we can talk about the breakthrough, we have to talk about the breakdown. Because the very thing that made God lean forward in His throne wasn't your strength at all. It was actually something you did in your most shameful hour of weakness, a moment you've probably tried to bury. And as we move forward, I'm going to show you exactly how that one failure was actually the final key to your promotion, leading us directly into the 3 specific acts of secret service that have changed your spiritual standing forever. You're still here, and that's not a coincidence. It's because your spirit recognizes a truth your mind is still trying to wrap itself around. Now, I want to take you deeper into the why. Why did the spiritual atmosphere in your life suddenly shift? Why did heaven move from simply acknowledging your existence to being actively impressed by your soul? To understand that, we have to look at the 3 specific, invisible acts that defined your last few months. These weren't grand gestures. They were quiet victories won in the heart of a chaotic American life. Imagine a 3-4-year-old woman named Elena, living in a cramped apartment on the outskirts of Seattle. To the world, Elena is just another face in the crowd, struggling with the rising cost of rent and the relentless pace of her 9-to-5. But heaven doesn't see a nobody. Heaven sees a warrior. And a few weeks ago, Elena faced the first invisible act, financial sacrifice in the face of scarcity. It was a rainy Thursday night. Elena sat in her old SUV, the engine idling roughly. She was staring at her banking app. The balance was $242.18. She had exactly 10 days until her next paycheck, and she still needed to put gas in the tank and buy groceries for her kids. But then, an alert popped up, a request for help from a local community shelter she had supported once before. They were short on emergency supplies for families hit by the recent storms. Her mind immediately went into survival mode. The math was simple. I don't have enough. If I give $50, I'm cutting it too close. If I give $100, I'm eating toast for dinner for the next week. Logic was screaming at her to ignore the notification. God understands, she thought. I'll give when things are better. I'll give when my savings account hits 4 figures. But deep in her gut, there was a whisper. A nudge that defied every rule of North American economics. It said, "Trust me with the seed, and I will handle the harvest." With trembling fingers, Elena pressed confirm. Transaction #24. She didn't post a screenshot to her story. She didn't tell her coworkers the next morning to feel superior. She actually felt a bit foolish, a bit exposed. But at that exact microsecond, in the throne room of the universe, a notification flashed. A note was filed under her name. This one trusts my provision more than their own bank statement. This one has passed the test of the widow's mite. But the tests didn't stop at her wallet. The second invisible act was even harder. Silent forgiveness. Think back to that person in your life, the one who betrayed you. For you, maybe it happened in a high-rise office in Manhattan or a quiet neighborhood in Austin. For Elena, it was a former business partner who had lied, embezzled a small amount, and then smeared her reputation to cover their tracks. Elena had the emails. She had the receipts. She could have gone on a scorched earth campaign. One post, one legal filing, and she could have watched them burn. And honestly, everyone would have cheered her on. They deserved it. She sat at her kitchen table at 11 p.m., her laptop screen glowing in the dark. The draft of the email was ready. The send button was right there. Her heart was racing with the adrenaline of revenge, a feeling we often mistake for justice. But then, the silence of the room seemed to grow heavy. A realization washed over her. If I destroy them to save myself, who am I serving? She heard a prompt in her spirit. Release the debt, not because they are right, but because you are mine. I will be your defense. Elena didn't send the email. She deleted the draft, blocked the number, and made a choice to never speak a word of that betrayal to anyone who didn't need to know. She forgave them in the shadows, where no one could tell her how noble she was. That release, it was a seismic event. Forgiveness without an audience is the purest form of spiritual authority. It proved to heaven that Elena's heart wasn't for sale. Then came the third, and perhaps most powerful act, midnight worship in the void. We've all been there. It's 3 a.m. in an American suburb. The streetlights are flickering outside, and the weight of your life feels like it's literally crushing the air out of your lungs. Elena was staring at the ceiling of her bedroom. She wasn't just tired. She was soul-weary. She had been faithful. She had given. She had forgiven. And yet, nothing had changed. In fact, things seemed to be getting worse. The American dream felt like a cruel joke, and God felt like a distant memory. The voice of the enemy whispered, "Why are you still trying? Does the creator of the stars really care about a 3-4-year-old woman in Seattle? You're talking to an empty ceiling." Elena felt the burn of tears in her throat. She didn't feel anointed. She didn't feel chosen. She felt abandoned. But instead of turning over and letting the darkness win, she did something radical. She whispered, "I don't feel you. I don't see you. But I know who you are. You are good, even when my life is not. She put on a worship song on her phone, turned the volume down low so as not to wake the neighbors, and lifted her hands in the dark. Her hands felt like lead. Her heart felt like stone. But she chose to declare His goodness when every piece of evidence in her life screamed the opposite. That, my friend, is the worship that moves the heart of God. Anyone can sing on a Sunday morning when the lights are bright and the band is playing. But to worship in the void? To worship when you feel absolutely nothing? That is a qualification that cannot be bought. You see, these three acts, the sacrifice when you're broke, the forgiveness when you're wronged, and the praise when you're broken, they form a pattern. In the kingdom, this is known as Nistar, the beauty of the hidden motive. It's the proof that your faith isn't a performance. It's a relationship. You weren't doing it for the likes or the validation. You were doing it for an audience of one. And because you stood your ground in the shadows, God is now preparing to move you into the light. But here is the twist that most people miss, and it's the reason you need to stay tuned for what's coming next. You might think those three acts were the peak of your journey, but they were actually just the foundation. There was a moment of very specific, raw, and terrifyingly honest thought you had right after those acts that actually impressed God more than all of them combined. It was a moment of brutal honesty that you're probably ashamed of, but it's the very thing that unlocked the activation phase of your life. Before I reveal what that moment was and how it's about to trigger a 40-day window of supernatural acceleration in your life, we need to talk about the gap, that uncomfortable space between your obedience and your breakthrough, and why the way you handled that gap is the reason you've been officially deployed for what's about to happen next. Here is the third segment of the story, written in a compelling American narrative style, spanning approximately 1,200 words. Now, I need you to lean in, because we're about to cross the threshold from what you thought faith was into the raw, unfiltered reality of how heaven actually operates. We've talked about the big three: the sacrifice, the forgiveness, the midnight worship. But there's a secret I've been holding back. Those three acts, they were just the entrance exam. They were the proof that you could handle the silence. But what actually made God lean forward in His throne, what truly impressed the Creator, wasn't your strength. It was your absolute, bone-deep, terrifying honesty in the moment you thought you had failed. Let's go back to a 2-year-old man named Marcus. Marcus lives in a quiet, tree-lined suburb of Columbus, Ohio. He's the kind of guy who's worked the same mid-level management job for 15 years, drives a silver Ford F-150 that's seen better days, and is known in his community as the Rock. He's the guy everyone calls when their basement floods or they need a ride to the airport at 4 a.m. For months, Marcus had been walking through a Nistar season, a period of hiddenness. He had been faithful in the dark. He had given his last $500 to a neighbor facing eviction when his own savings were hovering at a measly $50. He had forgiven a brother who hadn't spoken to him in a decade. He had prayed until his knees ached on the cold linoleum of his kitchen floor. And then the gap happened. 3 weeks passed, then 4, then 6, and instead of the clouds parting and a check appearing in the mail, Marcus's transmission blew out on the I-71. His son's tuition bill came in higher than expected. The silence from heaven didn't just feel like a delay. It felt like a ghosting. One Tuesday night, around 11:45 p.m., Marcus was sitting on the edge of his bed in the dark. The house was quiet, save for the hum of the refrigerator downstairs. And in that moment, Marcus didn't pray a churchy prayer. He didn't recite a psalm. Instead, a thought rose up from the depths of his soul, a thought so raw, so blasphemous by religious standards, that it made his skin crawl. He thought, "I did everything you asked. I stayed when I wanted to run. I gave when I was empty. And for what? Are you even there? Or am I just a fool talking to a ceiling in Ohio while my life falls apart?" He immediately felt a wave of crushing guilt. He felt like a fraud. He thought, a real chosen one wouldn't doubt. A real person of faith wouldn't be this angry. He tried to suppress it, tried to force a smile and hum a hymn, but the honesty was already out there. It was a moment of total asthenia, the Greek word for a complete lack of capacity to perform. He was at the end of his rope. But here is the cosmic irony. That thought, that brutal, jagged piece of honesty, that was the exact moment heaven erupted in applause. You see, in the American church culture, we are taught to fake it till you make it. We are told that God only wants our victory reports and our blessed testimonies. But the Bible tells a different story. It tells the story of a God who is attracted to weakness. In 2 Corinthians 12-9, the message isn't "be stronger." It's "my power is made perfect in your I can't." When Marcus admitted he couldn't see the point anymore, he stopped performing. He stopped trying to impress God with his perfect faith and started connecting with God through his perfect honesty. And that, my friend, is what triggered the activation. Anyone can have faith when the bank account is full and the kids are healthy. But to stay in the room, to keep the shirt on the hanger and the keys in your hand while you were screaming, "Why?" inside, that is the faith that moves mountains. Think about the Sunday morning test. It was 7:16 a.m. for Marcus. The doubt from the night before was still sitting like a lead weight in his chest. His mind was screaming, "Don't go. Why bother? It's just a building with people wearing masks. It hasn't changed your situation." But Marcus didn't listen to his feelings. With his hands still shaking from the exhaustion of the struggle, he pulled that same ironed shirt off the hanger. He tied his shoes. He drove those 12 miles to that small chapel. He sat in the 3rd row. He didn't feel a tingle. He didn't get a word. He just stayed. He stayed while doubting. And as he sat there, the invisible realm began to shift. You see, when you obey while you're hurting, you aren't just a follower anymore. You become a partner. You are proving that your relationship with the divine isn't transactional. You aren't in it for the blessings or the good vibes. You're in it because of who He is, even when you can't feel where He is. This is the point in the video where everything changes for you. If you've been feeling guilty about your questions, if you've been ashamed of that night last week, when you cried in your car and told God you couldn't do this anymore, I am here to tell you that was your qualification. Your breaking point wasn't the end of your story. It was the end of your flesh and the beginning of His Spirit. God watched Marcus in that bedroom in Ohio. He saw the doubt, and He loved the honesty. He saw the struggle, and He rewarded the staying power. And now, the same thing is happening to you. Because you didn't quit when it made sense to quit, you have been moved from the waiting room to the war room. But understand this, the Creator's approval isn't a trophy to put on your mantle. It's not meant to make you feel comfortable. In the kingdom of heaven, when God is impressed, He doesn't just give you a hug, He gives you a deployment. He authorizes you to carry a weight of authority that would crush someone who hasn't been through the fire of doubt. You are about to enter a 40-day window where the evidence of this approval is going to manifest in the physical world. I'm talking about 5 specific marks that will show up in your life, things you can see, touch, and track. From supernatural peace during a crisis at your job to an accelerated provision that makes a 401k look like pocket change. But you have to be ready, because once the mark is on you, you become a target for a different level of opposition. As we move into the next segment, I'm going to break down exactly what these 5 marks look like in a modern American life, and I'm going to reveal the 6th mark, the one that is so powerful I had to wait until now to even mention it. But before we get there, you need to recognize that the person you were when you started this video, the one who felt overlooked and disqualified by their own doubt, that person is gone. You are now a commissioned carrier of a divine assignment. And as we transition, keep this in mind. Heaven didn't just call you because you were good. Heaven called you because you were real. And because you were real in the dark, you are about to be used in the light in a way that will leave your enemies confused and your community in awe. Let's talk about what happens when the approval becomes activation, and the battle for your next 90 days truly begins. You've made it through the fire of the gap. You've stood your ground when your emotions were screaming at you to retreat. And now, because you stayed faithful in that silent, suburban Ohio night, or that lonely Seattle apartment, the spiritual realm has officially shifted its status toward you from evaluating to activated. But how do you know? How can you tell that this isn't just another week of struggling? In the next 40 days, you are going to witness 5 specific marks of divine approval. These are not metaphors. These are tangible, high-definition shifts in your American reality. As I describe them, I want you to scan your life starting from yesterday and see where the evidence is already bubbling up. The first mark is supernatural peace during natural chaos. Imagine a 50-year-old construction foreman in Phoenix named David. He's in the middle of a high-stakes project when the supply chain collapses His lead architect quits, and a freak storm ruins $50,000 worth of materials. Normally, David would be a wreck, high blood pressure, shouting at his crew, losing sleep. But suddenly, he finds himself standing in the mud, breathing calmly. His hands are steady as he makes his morning coffee. While everyone around him is catastrophizing on Slack and Zoom, David feels an unshakable stillness. This is the Frorio, the divine garrison. God's peace has taken up a military position at the gates of his mind. If you find yourself oddly calm while your industry or your family is in a tailspin, you've been marked. The second mark is divine favor in restricted places. You're going to walk into rooms you didn't apply for. You'll get a call from a recruiter for a position that wasn't even posted on LinkedIn. You'll find yourself in a conversation with a decision maker at a gala or a grocery store, and for some reason, they'll want to help you. This is the key of David in action. Doors that were locked by bureaucracy or who you know will simply swing open because the architect of the universe has turned the lock for you. The third mark is enemy confusion and misdirection. This one is fascinating. Those who plotted against you, the office politician in Chicago who tried to take credit for your work, or the ex-partner who tried to ruin your name, will suddenly start making unforced errors. Their strategies will fail, not because of what you do, but because when you are marked, your battles are outsourced to heaven. You don't have to defend yourself. You just have to watch the confusion settle on those who oppose your assignment. The fourth mark is accelerated provision. We are talking about the compression of time. Things that should take a 5-year plan in a standard American bank will happen in 5 months. You'll find a random tax refund, an old investment that suddenly spikes, or a side hustle that turns into a primary income stream overnight. God is front-loading your resources because the assignment He's giving you requires a budget that your old life couldn't sustain. The fifth mark is prophetic downloads. You'll start knowing things. You'll have a dream about a business move, and 3 days later, the news will confirm it. You'll feel a nudge to call a friend in Georgia, only to find out they were at their breaking point. Your intuition is being upgraded to revelation. You are being given the intel necessary for the mission. But remember, as these marks appear, the enemy isn't blind. He sees the glow of approval on your life. And that is why, in these same 40 days, you will face the counter strategies. You will face the isolation campaign, where you feel like an alien in your own hometown. You will face the counterfeit opportunity, that job offer that looks 90% perfect, but has 10% poison designed to take you off your true path. And most dangerously, you will face the pride trap, the whisper that says, "Look at how anointed I am." We have reached the final mountain peak of this journey. You understand the sacrifice, you've embraced the doubt, and you've recognized the marks. But there is one final piece of the puzzle that most people never reach, because they get too comfortable with the blessings of the first 5 marks. The sixth mark is the ultimate proof of spiritual maturity in the American landscape. It's the moment God sends you to someone who reminds you of your old self. Picture this. You're at a Starbucks in a suburb of Dallas. You're finally experiencing the peace, the favor, and the provision. Life is good. Then, you see a young man or woman sitting at a corner table, head in their hands, staring at a laptop with that look of utter, soul-crushing defeat. You recognize that look because it was yours 6 months ago. Your first instinct will be to mind your own business. I'm finally doing well. I don't want to get pulled back into that energy, you'll think. But then, you'll feel that familiar nudge. The 6th mark is the mandate of transmission. God didn't just save you to make you a success story. He saved you to make you a signpost. True chosen ones are not endpoints for God's glory. They are conduits. When you sit down with that person and say, "I've been where you are. I've sat in the dark and questioned if God was real," you are activating a kingdom multiplication. You are passing on the Nistar fire. This is where your approval becomes a legacy. It's about taking the raw, unpolished truth of your survival and using it to anchor someone else's soul. As we move into this final activation, I want you to realize that the person you were 40 minutes ago is gone. You have been purified by trial, justified by honesty, and now you are being commissioned for impact. You are no longer just a resident of a town or a state. You are an ambassador of a kingdom. If you are ready to seal this, if you are ready to accept the weight of this assignment and the glory that comes with it, then it is time to pray. This is not a request. It is a decree. Final prayer decree. In the name of the one who sees in the secret place, I decree that every chain of invisibility is broken off your life. I seal the 5 marks upon your household. I declare that within 40 days, your physical reality will reflect your spiritual promotion. You are dismissed from the cave of preparation and released into the field of manifestation. You are marked. You are seen. You are approved. You are deployed. Go now and walk as a warrior of the light. What we've walked through today isn't just a story. It's a roadmap for the soul in modern times. The journey of Caleb, Elena, Marcus, and David is ultimately your journey. The core meaning of this entire experience is simple yet profound. God is not looking for your perfection. He is looking for your presence. He values the integrity of your heart in the dark more than the intensity of your praise in the light. The lesson for you today is to stop disqualifying yourself because of your struggles or your doubts. Those very moments of, "I can't," were the invitations for God to say, "I will." Your hidden obedience has built a spiritual credit that is now being cashed in for a divine assignment. Thank you for walking this path with me today. You are part of a growing cloud of witnesses who are changing the world through secret faithfulness. If this message resonated with your spirit and you feel ready to embrace your marks, please comment 9 below. If you feel there are parts I could improve, or if this didn't quite hit the mark for you, please comment 0 so I can make my future content more impactful for you. Or simply leave a comment sharing your own midnight worship story. We love hearing your perspective. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It truly gives me the motivation to keep crafting these deep dive videos for you.